Angie, thank you so much for doing this video with us. And we're going to be looking at working with clay today. And how long have you been working with clay?
Wow, not a huge amount of time, but I think I grasped the idea of being able to work sensory-wise with clay and really wanted to explore that myself before doing it with clients.
So it's been quite a personal journey with clay as well as working in the counselling room. So the first question people are always asking is, what kit do I need to get started? What kind of clay? What other instruments? How does it work?
So there are lots of different types of clay you can get hold of, but it depends on where you are and your circumstances. It might be easier for you to order online. And you might want to get a lovely big bag. They sell some really lovely big bags of terracotta clay, and you can experiment and make lots with it. Or you might just want to nip into Hobbycraft or even some of the local supermarkets like Aldi or Lidl will sell the small packs of clay. It's a really good starter and gives you a good
See
chance.
how you get on.
Yeah.
Yes. So, what else would we need? Do you have to have special tools for working with the clay?
I personally don't think you have to have special tools. I've got a couple of tools that actually come from a children's set. So there's these, and I've also got a couple of spoons.
Okay, ordinary household spoons.
Yeah, I find that they make really good shapes in the clay, and specifically when we're doing labyrinths, which we'll talk about in a minute, is that they can make a really nice sort of finger shape and keep it nice and smooth. Then I've got a kitchen knife.
Yeah.
I can see it's got a children's one, but again, just for smoothing down edges or maybe cutting into the clay when it's got a bit drier. And again, another plastic tool is made for you by you.
Yeah. And I guess people don't know whether they like working with clay till they give it a go, because some people think, ooh, and others just really connect with the earthiness of it.
I found that was true for me. I don't mind getting my hands dirty. I'll quite happily have a go. And just to put your hands in that clay and to hold it and to start feeling it moulding, I don't know, that's quite a personal experience.
Yes.
So obviously it's got to work for the person you're working with or for yourself.
And what are you going to show us how to make?
One of the ones I've really enjoyed doing is it's a triangular labyrinth, and I think there's something about the three sides to it, drawing you into the centre. For me, I find these are some of the easiest ones to make. Sometimes if you go for a circular one, it can feel like it gets out of shape quite quickly. So I thought we might have a go at one of these.
So what is it about the labyrinth then?
So the labyrinth, for me, it's about the journey. And whether you're working with clients or you're working by yourself, in your own self-care, it's about spending that time creating something that you're going to come back to and journey with time and time again. Going through the maze, working out things that are going on for you. Maybe it's time to pause, feel what's going on in your body, holding the labyrinth.
And that's palm-sized, that one, isn't it?
Yeah, I like the palm-sized ones. Obviously there's larger ones as well, but for palm-size you can take it with you. You could be sitting in a park somewhere, or maybe you take it with you and you've got clients that day and you sit after your clients and you can journey.
So quite centering.
Bringing yourself back to centre.
I was just thinking that would also make a brilliant transitional object for the clients if they had made it in the session to something that size. They could keep in a bag or a pocket, couldn't they? So that lends itself very well.
So before I start thinking about creating my labyrinth, I want to make sure that I've got everything to hand. Because once you start touching the clay, you will obviously get quite mucky. Depending on the clay you've got, if you've got some of the shop bought clays are not quite so wet, I suppose, so you won't necessarily get so mucky. So I will always have some nice wet wipes to hand and a cloth. I also like to have some water, so that's in a water spray, so I can wet the clay or wet my hands and wipe it on the cloth. And that just allows me a little bit of knowledge that I'm going to be able to clean myself up at the end of this and not walk away and touch all the handles. And
You don't wear gloves?
I don't wear gloves, that's my choice, but other people could. I know when I offer this in my counselling room, I offer it with gloves, with the choice and the option to wear gloves. So far no one's taken me up on that. Okay. And I think that may be about just that sensory nature and the connection to the clay as you're working with it. Especially if I find an ending piece, that especially is very much about the handling the clay.
An ending piece?
So if you're working towards the ending of therapy, then having that sensory experience at the end and taking that with you, I found that to be really helpful. So here's some of the clay I would use. I like using the dark terracotta earthy clay, and you can see how quickly your hands get a bit mucky. And so that's why I've got this nice protective sheeting here as well. And obviously if you're working with clients online, then they could purchase the clay, get it sent to their home, and then they could set this up so that you could be with them on Zoom or whatever other video call you use for them to experience the clay. So I just start by working out how much I'm going to need. So I might pull the clay apart a bit, and for me it's about feeling a little bit about the shape it's going to become, and you can see it's mainly finger work.
So it's that one. Perhaps we could bring that the end result a bit closer so we can see what you're working towards. Was it that one or the other?
So we've got this one and we've got this one as well.
Okay. So do you know which one you're working towards, or does the clay kind of tell you?
Well, I've never made the same thing twice.
It might be something entirely new.
Your intention can be to be creating something triangular, and you can find that it's something completely different. So when working with the clay, if you yourself are using it, it's good to find a good base. So sometimes I might actually enjoy slapping it down, and that's quite a good release for anger as well. If you've got any pent up emotions going on, being aware that if you slap it too hard, it will get stuck.
Fair enough.
So just making sure you can peel it back up again.
You're smoothing it out there.
It's quite nice to feel that it's smooth on one side, but the other side is going to be a completely different sort of feeling, a different sense to it. And you can see as I'm pulling my fingers along, it's pulling clay off with it, and I can start to bring that shape together. I'm aware that as I start to use the clay and make the shape, for me, I'll tend to be quite silent because it's absorbing me, it's drawing me in. So, yes, I suppose that's the point. If you're working by yourself, you can wonder what's going on, what's drawing you in, where are you going? Or maybe you could be asking that for your client. And also being aware that silence may carry on for a while, depending on what's happening. So you can see the shape as the triangle comes together. So at this point, I might choose to go into using the spoon. I know we're creating a very specific shape, and you may just want to hold the clay and see what shape it wants to be. You might find it's drawing you into a different pattern.
So you're using the end of the spoon, not the bowl.
Yeah, I'm scooping out some of the clay now to allow us to get to that shape, the going into the centre, the drawing in. And a little bit of water, you can just see it helps smooth it out quite quickly but quite roughly. And you can see the shape sort of coming together quite nicely.
I find that quite stilling.
There's something about the nature behind it, this where the clays come from, this being drawn almost into the earth, and I find it really grounding. I find it's quite a sense of peacefulness, and yeah, it's quite hard to explain. I think you're just going to have a go. So I've come to the point where it looks roughly like the item that I was thinking about.
Yeah.
This one's slightly bigger,
Mm-hmm.
and that might be telling me something. I don't know. Maybe I'll go away and question that one later. But now I think I would put this to one side and just allow it a little time to dry.
Roughly
So
how long?
obviously if this is your own work, then I would give it a day and then I would come back to it. Because the clay will have changed a little bit. It will be not quite the same malleability, so you can then go around and sharpen any edges you want to, or refine it a bit if you want to.
So would you literally leave it like that somewhere, or would you need to protect it somehow?
If you don't want it to dry too quickly, you can cover it in plastic, you can put cling film over it, put it in a plastic bag. So if you're working with a client and you want to carry on working week to week, you can actually spray it with some water, put it in a plastic bag, and it will stay
That
quite
preserves
wet.
it.
So you can carry on with the work. But if it's for yourself and you just want to fine the edges a bit, you can let it dry off for a couple of days and then go back to it.
Okay.
So and then once you've got it all dry, it will be ready to be painted. That's if you want to paint it at all.
You might want to just leave it as the earthen shape and form and colour.
Yeah.
Angie, you've got some very unusual shapes here. Is there a story behind these?
Well, these are ones I've just been playing with the clay, so I haven't chosen a specific item that I wanted to make, and I think coming out with a ball that's not quite so perfect was quite interesting, and then questioning afterwards what was going on. So they're also things that I've chosen to paint, and then I will varnish and I'll put them in my sand tray.
Ah, so these would be great in a sand tray, wouldn't they? Because then they have whatever meaning the client puts on them. Were these really difficult to do?
These were actually quite simple.
I'll believe
because
you.
as you've allowed some of the clay to dry, gets a little bit hard to use, then you can just use a knife and go over and make sharp corners.
Wow, that seems so obvious, really.
You can create them quite simply, quite quickly. Again, I thought they sort of created themselves, and then once they were created, looking at them, I thought, oh, I know what they might mean to me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they'd be great in a sand tray to allow clients to
I think
explore
that's
things.
a super idea, a really good idea. So what have we got here then, Angie? This is one you've begun painting?
Yes, I've started painting it, and you can see it's got some different colours because I wasn't too sure what to paint it with.
And how long has that been drying?
Oh, that's been drying for a couple of months, really.
Oh, really?
It's
that long?
completely dry, that
Completely
one. Totally dry. Normally I I might not paint them for a couple of weeks,
Yeah.
just making sure that they dry. You can usually tell by looking at the bottom to make sure the colour's all one colour.
Yeah.
There's nothing coming through. And obviously it depends on the thickness. If you've got something that is a really big piece or quite round,
Your
it's going
tree,
to dry.
for example,
Yeah.
that would
Not
take a
over.
long time to dry, would it? Was that all done in one go, by the way?
It was all done in one go. The leaves I've put on separately. So when you add on to things like this, then you need to score the clay and put lots of water on to make sure it sticks.
Score the clay. Could you demo that for us? If you were going to add a piece on here, how would you do it?
So if I was going to add, so I'm just going to do it onto the bit there itself.
Okay.
I would score the clay, so using a little knife, I'd put some cuts in. You don't have to be fancy with it, just make sure it's cut across and into the pit that you're going to put it onto. And a little bit of water. And then you can just put them together.
And then it kind of grabs.
You feel it, the minute it's on there, you can feel it. It's not moving from side to side. It helps it to grip. And then I would have used my trusty spoon to come around the edges and pull the edges in, and you can see you get a nice fine line. Allows you to add.
Yeah, and I can see you've done that incredibly well with these leaves. Lovely, thank you. So, what kind of paint and how do you go about painting?
So I use acrylic paints on these. I use acrylics because they come out nice and bright, but also before I start painting any piece, I'll go over with an acrylic and PVA glue mix.
Glue?
So I'll mix PVA glue with half and half with the acrylic and just give it a good coat all over. So I might do that in a colour that's not going to be seen. I might do it in a white so that it gives the next layer of colours lots of nice brightness.
What's the rationale behind that then? Why is the glue just gives it a solid foundation?
It just enables the paint to stick well.
To stick well. Oh, fascinating.
So allows that to adhere to it. The thing with the PVA and the acrylic base is once you've put that on, don't add anything until that's completely dry.
Roughly how long? You knew I was going to ask you. Obsessed with time frames.
I do like to give it a day.
A day
then,
yeah.
I mean, then I'm absolutely certain.
Yeah.
But you can go back and check it. The trouble is if you check it and it's tacky, it's going to come away on your fingers. So it's good to let it dry.
You have to treat it with respect, don't you? It needs its own time.
There's a lot about timing. For me, this process with clay is the initial creation and then this protective layer. And then you'd move on to how you want to colour it. And I've found again that I tend to use my fingers with the paint and explore with the paint as well. And then finally, when I'm totally happy, I will varnish them as well so that they're completely covered with a spray varnish.
Going back to the glue and paint, how would you mix it? What would you have a little dish that you put it in?
Again, up to you. I tend to pour it straight on.
Oh, you put
and
it
I
straight
mix it all
on.
in together. I'm very much about fingers and getting involved,
Yeah.
so
you put a little bit of glue and a little bit of acrylic paint and squidge them round.
and mix it all
Technical
together.
term.
Very technical. And if you want to, you can put it into a separate little bowl, the right amount of quantity, mix it together, and then give it a good coat
50-50.
with a paintbrush that you'd have to wash out very quickly afterwards using lots of soap because obviously the PVA is a glue, otherwise it will set nice
It's not
and
going to
solid
work,
for
is
you.
it?
You won't have much brush left.
Show us some of the paints you might use.
So some of my favourite paints are the acrylics that have got a special metallic sheen. So best to show you on this one, you can see the metallic coming through.
Beautiful.
So it sort of shimmers.
This one?
Yeah.
Use this one. So pretty.
So this one again, I did a copper all around the edging. And again, going over with your finger and you're just mixing the paints together and enjoying the process. And then when it's completely dry, I've added some of the copper over the top, and I've added a little bit of copper in different places as well.
You kind of pick out the shape of the world, don't you? Often you do anyway, in a different colour. I suppose with this one, that was very distinctly. I love that. How did you get that effect of the? I mean, that's so incredible. Like it's got little leaves, isn't it?
It's a special make called Prism Fantasy. So they come in little pots, and these are oils. So they'll be quite split inside. You have to give them a really good shake or a good stir. And what I enjoy about these is that when you're using your labyrinth, you can run it around the centre, and it's very liquid, so it will take shape of the centre, and then afterwards you have this great effect where it sort of splits. Gives you quite a marble feeling because these are oils. And again, there's so many things out there now, so you could use your acrylic pens maybe if you do some stone painting, you get the acrylic pens, you might have an acrylic pen set, and that would be really easy to then...
Don't miss Angie's video on working with stones, it's fantastic. Can you show me how you would paint one of those bits of that stone then?
Okay. I'm going to... Well, this one will need the PVA and everything, and then I'll have to let it dry.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say, this one I've already done the PVA.
Okay, you chose that blue metallic to mix with the PVA. So
I would choose my colours, I'd think about what it is I want to add, and usually what I find is that I'll go with a base like this pearl white, and this might look a bit extreme, but we just pop some on top. I've got my handy wipes close to hand so that I can get rid of any of the excess, and then I'd probably just start moving it round. And I think what I wanted from this is that I get the blue coming through just about on the edges, but keep the white fairly dark. And it all looks very messy at the moment. And then I would probably add some other colours. I enjoy lots of different colours, so I would probably just, I might pick up a little bit of the blue, and this time I'm going to squeeze a bit onto my finger. She says, trying really hard. Oh, not so much. And then I want to add some of that edging back in. And it just looks quite messy. So I've got a sense of a wave going on as I'm suddenly adding the blue to the white. And actually wanting more of the blue and less of the white. It's all about the experience of just playing with it and seeing where you're taken.
Do you find some people who are quite perfectionist stress about it?
Absolutely. And it can be hard to let go and just be in it and with it.
Yeah.
If you're, I mean, we're filming, it's really hard to sort of think, well, it must look perfect, I've got to make it look like that one. But actually...
It is what it is.
That's the process of it, is that...
I love the colour. And it's making you think of a wave of the ocean kind of thing.
And the movement as you're taking your finger around is this swirl that you get, and these wonderful swirls you see in the ocean. And just as the wave comes in, this swirl that it goes through, this motion that comes across as it comes into the shore.
It's a very sensory process, isn't it?
So I might add something else to that, or I might leave it as it is.
So all the time you're using paint one after the other, that you're seeing how they mix together and the effects while they're still wet, whereas with the half-finished one, that's quite set, isn't it? You would paint on top of that red?
I would, and like I say, that would need a proper coat. I was playing with what colours I would really like before I'd started doing
the base
PVA
coat,
base
the PVA
coats.
base coat.
So that has got some PVA in it, but it's not. For whatever reason, I didn't finish the whole thing.
Yeah, no, that's good.
And
so what about this new one, the blue one then, the waves? Where would you go next?
the sense of wanting to have a bit more of the white on there, but I might just leave it as it is until it's dried a bit, and then I can add hints of more of the white round to the edges.
Almost like the white horses of the waves.
Yeah. And I think that if I had my box of glitter with me, I might add that as well.
And you did mention the Posca pens. Is it the Posca pens that you use on stones?
Posca
that
pens.
You could, if you wanted to, decorate your little labyrinth with.
I've also got these are a really lovely set of acrylic paint pens, and these are quite metallic as well. I could start using that on the top here to add in the white if I wanted to, and then just wipe them off, and you get the paint through on these too. So they're really helpful. There are so many different types out there now. They've brought in so many new ones, and Posca themselves have brought out lots of new ones too. I happen to have. They have a new metallic set out as well. So the metallics are really lovely. Especially for the smaller labyrinths. So if I took one of these, because you can go around and you can highlight on the end, you can give it a really good finish.
Oh wow.
And just go around the edge bits. You can see that I've used the prism paints in the middle, and then I can
to get that
add
sort of marbly effect.
Yeah.
And now you're using a Posca metallic paint pen to build the gold up.
Because it's already been primed, so. And the nice things with these is they do shine really nicely.
Yeah.
They've got a lovely shine to them, but you can, because they're effectively acrylic paints in a pen, it means you can add your acrylic paints to them if you want to. So that you could do the middle bit with that, and then you could add the acrylic paint for the edging as well. So just change the
That's
colours
really
a bit.
powerful. That's beautiful. Brilliant.
And I think that's what I find I do as well, is that you get to a certain point and you think, I'm going to leave it, I'll stop for now, go away, and then come back and go, oh yeah, maybe I could just add.
You get new
And
ideas.
And there's always bits that are evolving, and then there becomes a point when you say, well, no, I'm going to varnish it.
If we were working online and the client has bought the clay and you're just saying, just go with it, see what shape, would you have shown them some of the things you've made and how you made them?
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't?
No, I wouldn't show them. I would be talking to my client beforehand about whether this is something they would like to do, because we'd have to have that conversation before they could get the clay.
Of course.
Just discuss whether they've used clay before, whether it had been effective or useful, and how they'd used it.
Yeah.
Maybe if it's someone who you build up your understanding with your client, and you may know that they're someone who really enjoys being creative, so they might jump at the opportunity.
They'd love it.
Whereas others may think it's a bit more that they'd have to be perfect to be doing it.
Yeah.
So it's about allowing.
Yeah.
This is an exploration.
Yeah.
I wonder what we'll find.
So don't have a set agenda. Just go with the clay and see what happens. See. Yeah. Angie, thank you so much. That was absolutely fascinating, and such beautiful things you've made.
Oh,
thank
you, Pauline.